Chapter 1651. Benjamin nodded slightly, finding Lucien's ruffled appearance rather amusing. Damn it, why would you go to that old fox's house? Are you going to settle scores? Lucien narrowed his eyes, managing to keep his emotions in check, thinking that Benjamin's visit was nothing but a waste of mealtime. There was no need for Jeremiah to be warned in person. A phone call would suffice. About time, isn't it? Benjamin glanced at the clock. Wasn't Kingsley and his group taking a bit too long to come out? Lucien's eyes darted around as he advised, why bother settling scores? Wouldn't it be better to cause him some trouble secretly or even confront him directly? Even if it comes to a fight, we need to be well fed first. Let's eat and then proceed. A slight twitch appeared at the corner of Benjamin's mouth. He glanced at him. Go and eat by yourself. His wife and children were of utmost importance to him. Until he saw them safe and sound, he could not be at ease. Do we really have to go now? Lucien was extremely frustrated. Yes, Benjamin responded, making his point even clearer. My wife and children are at his place. Lucien's eyes widened, and he shouted again, what? He's holding your wife and children at his place. That's too cunning, the old fox. What does he want to do? Threaten you? Upon seeing Kingsley and his companions emerge, Benjamin spoke to them, instructing them to head to the hotel first. Although they hadn't been subjected to any form of torture or forced confession, they had been confined for an entire day, coupled with the time spent in the basement. They hadn't bathed in a while. Their faces were grimy and dirty, and they looked somewhat disheveled. You're going to Jeremiah's place alone. What if something happens? We should go with you. Kingsley was worried about Benjamin going alone and insisted on accompanying him. How could we not go to pick up Arissa and the little ones? We'll go with you. After picking them up, it won't be too late to pack at the hotel. Jonathan was also apprehended. He led his people over there, assuming it was a local power in disguise trying to kidnap someone, and ended up being captured as well. Ethan and Jack naturally followed closely behind Benjamin. They all followed Benjamin, naturally bringing along a host of bodyguards for protection. And so, a large group of people made their way to the Hoffman residence. Even without freshening up, men, after all, weren't too particular about the minor details. As long as they carried an air of confidence, that was all that mattered. Lucien had sworn he would never set foot in Jeremiah's house, but now he had to go there with Benjamin. Deep down, he couldn't help but grumble and curse. If Jeremiah were to see him, wouldn't he be eating his own words? Or perhaps that old fox Jeremiah had known all along that Benjamin would come. Was he certain that Benjamin would visit the Hoffman residence? What did he meant by preparing food? If you don't want to go, I can drop you off in the city. Seeing Lucien's troubled and gloomy expression, Benjamin found it amusing deep down. Throughout their journey, Lucien and Jeremiah constantly bickered and rubbed each other the wrong way. However, their relationship was not one of hostility. Every time Benjamin saw Lucien, he wanted to ask what the reason was, but Lucien simply refused to discuss it. It's not that I didn't want to go, but if all of you went and I didn't, wouldn't that make me look inferior? I decided to go just to scare him. Lucien decided to rely on Benjamin's authority. He wasn't going to lose to Jeremiah. Benjamin curled the corners of his mouth and teasingly asked, "You're not going to eat anymore?" Lucien gave him a sidelong glance and barked, "I'm going to eat at old fox's house. Is there a problem? Damn it, since I'm already here, the food and drinks prepared by Jeremiah are pretty good. I suppose I can force myself to eat a bit." Benjamin no longer provoked him. The Hoffman residence. The butler came into the study and called for Jeremiah. "Mr. Hoffman, dinner is ready. Shall we serve it now?" Before, Jeremiah had asked him to prepare meals for several people, but up until now, no one had shown up. Worried that Arissa and the others might go hungry from waiting, Gideon had no choice but to come and speak to Jeremiah. If they weren't coming, they wouldn't have to wait any longer and could start eating now. Just wait a bit longer. They're almost here. Jeremiah carefully placed the photo frame he was holding, then stood up and walked out. Gideon glanced at his expression, realizing that he was lost in memories again, and sighed inwardly. Mr. Hoffman is excellent in every way, but he has no one by his side to share his life with or to show concern for him. Sometimes, it's heartbreaking just to watch him. Chapter 1652. In the living room, the atmosphere was filled with joy. Two little ones were chattering non-stop around Orissa, creating a lively scene. Sean and Edwin would occasionally converse with Orissa, creating a scene that was typical of an ordinary household. A glint flickered in Jeremiah's eyes. It had been a long time since the Hoffman residence had been this lively. I wonder how Benjamin is doing. As Orissa was dining with the children, once their matters were settled, she couldn't help but start worrying about Benjamin. Sean glanced at her, offering comfort. Orissa, don't worry too much. Benjamin has gone to find Kingsley and Jack in the desert. It's normal that we can't reach him often due to poor signal there. He might be busy searching for them and hasn't returned to the base yet, so he can't contact us. You should stop overthinking. Gavin stole a glance at Orissa along with Zachary, noticing her concern for her father. He also offered her a few words of comfort. Mommy, I'm sure Daddy is fine. He's just temporarily out of contact with us. Gavin was afraid of giving himself away, so he dared not look directly at Orissa. Indeed, Mommy, you can rest assured. Benjamin is so capable, he will surely be fine. Zachary confidently assured her, even praising Benjamin. Orissa chuckled, turning to Zachary, how did your daddy become so impressive? Zachary felt a bit embarrassed and mumbled, anyway, he's just amazing. Who knows how he does it? Orissa chuckled lightly, but upon seeing Jeremiah approaching, she became somewhat reserved. Were you discussing Benjamin? Jeremiah asked as he sat down. The previously relaxed atmosphere in the living room instantly gained a touch of restraint. Indeed, Orissa nodded, refraining from mentioning where Benjamin had gone. Benjamin's whereabouts couldn't be casually disclosed. Didn't he contact you? Jeremiah naturally heard their conversation and casually asked. He's on a business trip, probably busy. Orissa glanced at Jeremiah, meeting his somewhat amused gaze, and paused momentarily. Perhaps he's not on a business trip. Jeremiah's words sent a shock through them all. Orissa became anxious, her gaze fixed intently on Jeremiah. She wondered if Jeremiah was merely playing mind games or if he actually knew something. Sean was intently staring at Jeremiah, pressing him with a question, what do you mean, Commander Hoffman? The two little ones were also glaring at Jeremiah, looking as if they wished they could bite him. Jeremiah raised an eyebrow in response. I was just guessing. Why are you all so nervous? HMPH. If you dare to harm my daddy, we won't let you off, Gavin warned Jeremiah, his little face stern. If you keep spouting such baseless words, watch out. We'll deal with you. Zachary was so infuriated that he was practically snorting in anger, his nostrils flaring. They certainly weren't threatened. Gavin. Orissa pulled the two children back, fearing they might anger Jeremiah. Commander Hoffman, do you know where my husband is now? Orissa stared at Jeremiah. Deep down, she was still very worried about Benjamin's safety. What if Benjamin was in his hands? Jeremiah chuckled. Not quite sure. Perhaps it's best not to tell them yet. Let's give them a surprise. Just as Orissa was about to say something, a rumbling sound came from her stomach. The sudden silence that followed was unbearably awkward. Orissa's face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye, her ears especially flushed. Sean and Edwin couldn't help but laugh. I'm hungry too. Let's eat. Jeremiah rose to his feet, inviting them to the dining room. Orissa felt particularly embarrassed, knowing that Jeremiah was trying to diffuse her awkwardness. Didn't Commander Hoffman mention that someone else was coming? Let's wait for them before we start eating. I'm not that hungry yet. Even though I don't know who the other person is, it's important not to lose my manners. No worries. Let's eat first. Jeremiah glanced at her, invited them, and took the lead to go over. Orissa and the others exchanged glances, then Sean subtly gestured toward Jeremiah, speaking in a hushed tone. The host has spoken. Let's go and eat. After all, they didn't know the other guests, so it didn't matter. Everyone made their way to the dining room. Chapter 1653. Everyone took their seats one after another. Jeremiah glanced around and noticed that Justin was absent. He turned his head and instructed Gideon, "Go and ask Justin to come down for dinner." "Yes, Mr. Hoffman." The butler then hurried off. Jeremiah then served Arissa and the others, even having wine poured for them. The two youngsters naturally received beverages instead. Remembering that Arissa was pregnant, he instructed the housekeepers to switch her drink. "Issa, you should stick to juice. You better stay away from alcohol." "Thank you." Arissa gratefully accepted Jeremiah's thoughtful gesture. When Sean and Edwin saw how friendly Jeremiah was toward Arissa and the two little ones, they were slightly taken aback. Regardless of whether Jeremiah's kindness was superficial or genuine, it was certainly a good thing. Enough with the formalities. Let's eat. Jeremiah warmly invited them, even serving the two youngsters chicken drumsticks. Gavin and Zachary glanced at Jeremiah, expressing their gratitude politely. "Thank you." Jeremiah chuckled. The softness between his brows and eyes was unlike his usual demeanor. Upon his arrival, Justin noticed the goodwill that Jeremiah was showing toward the two youngsters, which caused him to furrow his brows. When did Uncle Jeremiah start liking children so much? Although Benjamin's two kids are quite adorable, they can also be quite exasperating. "Justin, join us for a meal." Upon seeing him, Jeremiah was the first to call out. After all, he was his only nephew. "Understood, Uncle Jeremiah." Justin dared not show any temper, obediently walked over and sat down. Unsure whether it was intentional or simply unheeded, he took a seat right next to Arissa. On the other side of Arissa were two children, conveniently situated between her and Jeremiah. Across from them were Sean and Edwin. Jeremiah coughed lightly, signaling Justin with his eyes. "Take a seat across. That spot is taken." Suddenly, everyone inexplicably turned their gaze toward Jeremiah. Justin pursed his lips, a hint of defiance in his heart, but he dared not protest. Submissively, he took his plate and sat down across the table. Arissa was filled with bewilderment. Could it be that the person Jeremiah arranged was someone she actually knew? However, she couldn't figure out who it was in Jocasta. Could it be that Bradley had also come over? However, Jeremiah didn't know Bradley. If the latter had really gone here, he would have arrived much earlier and wouldn't have been late. Sean, along with Edwin, was quite curious about the identity of the person who had yet to arrive. They had just started eating when the phone by the door rang. It was Gideon who answered it. Gideon hurriedly reported to Jeremiah, "Mr. Hoffman, Chief Zabel and his people have arrived, and they've brought quite a crowd." Gideon glanced at Arissa as Benjamin had also arrived. As expected, their speed was indeed quite fast. Jeremiah nodded, instructing, "Invite them in." Noted. Gideon hurried to the door, but before he could step out, he saw Benjamin and his entourage marching in. They barged in, their men restrained by Benjamin's bodyguards. Jeremiah called out to Arissa, rising to his feet just in time to see a car pulling up at the front door. Benjamin was the first to step out of the car, his aura commanding respect. Upon seeing Jeremiah, his gaze turned icy cold. "Commander Hoffman, I've come to pick up my wife and children." Lucian swiftly got out of the car, followed by Kingsley, Jonathan, Ethan, and Jack. They all stood beside Benjamin, their presence formidable. "I must say, Jeremiah, isn't it a bit underhanded of you to target Benjamin's wife and children?" Lucian, also known as Chief Zabel, taunted while glaring at Jeremiah. Seeing no reaction from Jeremiah, he gritted his teeth in frustration. "Release them immediately, or we'll level your place to the ground." "There's been a misunderstanding." Jeremiah was not at all flustered, even warmly greeting them. "Everyone must be hungry. Let's go inside and eat first. We can discuss other matters after the meal." Lucian surreptitiously swallowed, unsure of what this cunning old fox had prepared. The food and wine were incredibly fragrant. However, for the sake of his pride, he wouldn't be the first one to make a move. Benjamin stared icily at Jeremiah, his thin lips barely moving as he spoke. "I only want my family. Nothing else matters. Where are my wife and children?" Just as Jeremiah was about to say they were dining inside, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed from behind. Daddy, Chapter 1654. Orissa and her group were in the dining room when they heard a distinct noise from outside, piquing their curiosity. Who are these people? How audacious of them to dare crash into my uncle's front door. From Justin's perspective, he could roughly make out the situation outside, his face dark with anger. The opponent looked rather fierce. Concerned for Jeremiah, Justin abandoned his food and headed toward the door. Orissa and the others exchanged glances, while Sean couldn't help but feel a bit of schadenfreude. Could it be that Jeremiah's enemy has come knocking at the door? Less than a minute had passed when a familiar sound came from the direction of the door. They were all utterly astounded. Orissa's heart began to race uncontrollably. Could it be Benjamin's voice? She was still somewhat stunned, fearing that it was a hallucination caused by her excessive longing. The two little ones shot out like arrows. It seems to be Benjamin. Sean's eyes revealed a hint of surprise and joy as he spoke to Orissa and Edwin. Edwin nodded, expressing his surprise as well. It is Mr. Benjamin's voice. At this point, they could no longer sit still. One after another, they left their seats and headed toward the door. Daddy! Gavin and Zachary rushed to the door, and upon seeing that it was indeed Benjamin himself, they excitedly dashed over. A glint flashed in Benjamin's eyes as he saw the two little ones. The corners of his mouth lifted, revealing a tender look of affection. He steadily caught Gavin as the latter flung himself into his arms. Zachary ran up to him and paused briefly. Seeing Benjamin raise his hand to signal him, the little guy finally approached. Benjamin held the two children in his arms, fondly ruffling their hair. "Where's your mommy?" The two children seemed to be unharmed. Benjamin's gaze swept past them. His eagerness to see Orissa was palpable. "Mommy is eating," the two little ones exclaimed in unison. No sooner had their voices faded than Orissa appeared. The couple glanced at each other across the room, both somewhat stirred. Even though it had only been a few days since they last met, it felt as if several years had passed. The thought of it drove them to madness. "Benjamin!" Orissa's eyes were tinged with red in her excitement as she hurriedly jogged toward Benjamin. Worried that she might fall, Benjamin let go of the two children, took a large stride forward, and hurriedly went to meet her, exclaiming, "Be careful." Gavin and Zachary exchanged glances, a hint of a smirk tugging at the corners of their mouths. Daddy has mommy now, and they no longer cherish us. Sean, Edwin, Kingsley, Ethan, Jack, and Jonathan had all grown accustomed to scenes like this. Instead, Jeremiah, Lucian, and Justin, who were not used to it, were all watching intently. Especially Lucian, the moment he saw Orissa, his eyes were completely captivated. Benjamin embraced Orissa, pulling her head into his chest. He gently rubbed her head, soothing her in a soft voice, "It's okay. I've come to take you home." He assumed that Orissa was here because of his affairs, which had caused her to be filled with fear and anxiety. Finally, Orissa felt his warmth. She couldn't help but indulge in it for a moment, snuggling into his embrace. Upon hearing Benjamin's words, she paused for a moment, abruptly lifting her head to look at him. "How are you here? Weren't you at the base?" Could it be that he rushed back because he knew about the children's situation, or was it? A flicker of confusion passed through Benjamin's eyes. Hearing her words, he knew that her concerns were not about herself. His wife was unaware of his detention, so why would she appear here? Wasn't it too much of a coincidence? "How did you end up here?" Benjamin didn't respond to Orissa's words. Instead, he asked, trying to figure out what exactly was going on. Orissa also sensed that something was off. She glanced at him, then turned her head to look at Jeremiah. Jeremiah felt somewhat apprehensive about meeting Orissa's gaze. Her clear, questioning eyes made him feel a bit guilty. "Knowing you would come, I've already prepared food and drinks. If you don't mind, let's eat first and talk later." Jeremiah once again invited them into the house before turning to go inside. Benjamin's gaze fell directly onto Jeremiah. He didn't know what the latter's intentions were. "You all haven't eaten yet, have you? Let's go in and eat first." Orissa looked at their weary and travel-worn appearances, unsure of where they had rushed from, and pulled Benjamin along. Benjamin glanced at her, offering no objections, and followed Jeremiah with her in tow. Jeremiah still owed him an explanation. Seeing that Benjamin had entered, everyone else also followed suit and went into the house. When Justin saw Benjamin and the others unscathed, a trace of malice flickered in his eyes. Chapter 1655. What's the matter? Can't stand the sight of Benjamin, can you? Even if you can't, you better swallow it. Sean saw the malicious glint in Justin's eyes. As he passed by him, he issued a warning. Justin glared at him, said nothing, and followed him into the house. In a soft voice, Orissa asked Benjamin, "How did you all end up here? Let's talk about it later." Benjamin lowered his gaze to look at her, asking, "Did Jeremiah give you any trouble?" Orissa gave a slight shrug. Initially, she was troubled, but not anymore. "It's all right now. How did you end up here?" Benjamin asked, looking at Jeremiah's retreating figure with suspicion. Orissa pursed her lips, then said to him, "Jeremiah brought the two children here. I came to pick them up." A surge of anger welled up in Benjamin's eyes, and he cursed, "Old fox." Orissa quickly patted his chest to soothe him. "Don't be angry. He merely had the children brought here, and they weren't mistreated. Let's eat first before we go back. He has already promised me that I can take the children back." Benjamin's gaze was intense. He stated that their appearance here was no coincidence. Why had Jeremiah brought these two little ones here? It seemed they hadn't had any conflicts recently, had they? "What terms did you discuss with him?" Benjamin felt that Jeremiah wouldn't easily give in, and he was quite curious about how Orissa managed to do it. Orissa modestly lowered her gaze, telling him, "I helped him set up the network system inside the base." Benjamin raised an eyebrow. "My wife is truly amazing. Honey, you're truly amazing." Benjamin whispered softly into Orissa's ear. The warm breath brushed past her ear, causing Orissa's ears to turn a blush of red. "Enough with the lovey-dovey stuff, Benjamin. Are you going to wash your hands or not?" Kingsley couldn't help but tease Benjamin when he saw the couple clinging to each other. "Go wash your hands and eat." Orissa pushed him away, urging Benjamin to move along. "Go ahead first," Benjamin told Orissa before he turned around to join the others in washing their hands. Jeremiah glanced at the couple, and no matter how he looked at Benjamin, the latter still seemed like a scoundrel. Leading Orissa and the others, they headed to the dining room first. "Let's head over there first." Benjamin and his companions washed their hands and gradually took their seats. Upon seeing the table filled with sumptuous dishes, they were quite satisfied with Jeremiah's banquet, especially Lucian. "Old fox, don't think these dishes will be enough for us to forgive you." With a furrowed brow, Jeremiah stared at him and said in a deep voice, "My name is Jeremiah." All right. You're the boss, Commander Hoffman. Can we eat now? I'm starving." Lucian couldn't take his eyes off the food. Nothing was more important than filling his stomach. "It was originally prepared for you all, feel free to enjoy." Jeremiah called out, instructing the butler to fetch a few bottles of their treasured collection to pour for them. "That's the spirit. I was wondering why my words seemed to lack a certain punch earlier. It turns out this was what was missing. Don't be shy, everyone. Drink up." Lucian cheerfully greeted Benjamin and his group, giving off an impression that he was the host to those who didn't know any better. Jeremiah didn't mind him stealing the limelight and invited everyone to start eating. The dining table was filled to capacity. Following them was a group of bodyguards whom Gideon had arranged to sit at the back. He had set up a separate table to entertain them and then returned to serve Jeremiah and his party their meal. As he observed which dishes everyone loved to eat and if any were finished, Gideon would promptly prepare another. Serving, ensuring everyone was well catered for. Naturally, Kingsley and his companions, being confined inside, didn't have the most satisfying meals. At that moment, they didn't feel like talking. They just wanted to focus on eating. At the dinner, it was mainly Jeremiah's occasional calls that filled the air, along with Benjamin's inquiries as he served dishes to Orissa. "Do you still want this?" This is sweet and sour. It's appetizing." Orissa was very fond of sweet and sour ribs. Benjamin served her another piece. "Enough, save some for others." Orissa had eaten quite a bit and was starting to feel embarrassed. "Since you like sweet and sour ribs, I'll have Gideon prepare another serving, Jeremiah told Orissa, noticing her particular enjoyment, and promptly instructed the butler to prepare another portion. Chapter 1656. Benjamin glanced at Jeremiah. He had just arrived and hadn't noticed him before. However, it was quite clear now. He could see that Jeremiah's attitude toward Orissa was different. Lucian looked at Orissa, who was standing next to Benjamin, his gaze filled with astonishment. The resemblance was simply too striking. As he observed Jeremiah's attitude toward Orissa, a sense of understanding dawned in his heart. "Benjamin, what's your wife's name? I still don't know it. You haven't even bothered to introduce her," Lucian said, chewing thoughtfully, his gaze falling on Benjamin with a hint of annoyance. Benjamin glanced at Lucian, introducing Orissa to him. "My wife's name is Orissa. Issa, this is Chief Zabel from the National Security Agency. You can simply call him Lucian." Orissa was shocked. She hadn't expected the other party to be such a big shot. She wouldn't dare to casually address someone of such status by any other name. "Hello, Chief Zabel. No need for formalities," Lucian said warmly, smiling at Orissa. "Just call me Lucian like Benjamin does. If anyone dares to bully you in the future, just tell them you're under my protection. Let's see who would dare to mess with you then." Upon hearing Lucian's words, Jeremiah furrowed his brow. Couldn't Lucian speak without beating around the bush? With a smile, Orissa nodded. "All right. From now on, calling him Lucian is a sign of respect," Benjamin reminded Orissa with a lowered head. Orissa was taken aback, but she noticed that the relationship between Benjamin and Lucian was not ordinary. They seemed quite familiar with each other. "Are you close to him?" she asked softly. Benjamin curved his lips into a slight smile, his gaze deep and inscrutable. "Let's eat first. I'll tell you later." Orissa nodded, eating her meal attentively. "Issa, what else would you like to eat? I'll have Gideon prepare more for you." "Eat plenty." Jeremiah was particularly concerned, fearing that Orissa would go hungry. "This will be enough. No need to trouble yourself," Orissa said with a smile, not wanting to order more. A table was laden with delicious food, and they had sampled a bit of this and a bit of that, nearly enough to satisfy their hunger. However, when it came to the men and their drinking, it was a different story altogether. Moreover, with the butler periodically adding dishes, there was no need for her to order more. Benjamin glanced at Jeremiah, noticing that his gaze was fixed on Orissa. He furrowed his brows. Was Jeremiah perhaps too familiar with his wife? "Old fox. Jeremiah, with so many of us here, why do you only ask Issa? Don't you think you should ask us if we want to add more dishes? Aren't you being a bit too partial?" Only Lucian dared to challenge Jeremiah. Benjamin couldn't be bothered to speak. Indeed, others didn't dare to provoke Jeremiah. They simply focused on eating their meals. The two little ones paid no mind to the affairs of the adults, eating with such earnestness that their mouths were smeared with grease. Orissa handed tissues to the two children to wipe their mouths. Seeing their earnest eating, she felt no need to worry. "You can order whatever dishes you like. I'm just worried that Issa might not be accustomed to them," Jeremiah responded calmly, instructing the butler to add a few more dishes. He lifted his wine glass. "Lucian, I apologize for making you run this errand. It's my fault for not managing my subordinates properly." Lucian lifted his gaze to stare at him, conveniently seated directly across from Jeremiah, each of them on either side of the dining table. "You should be apologizing to Benjamin, not me. I have nothing to fuss about," Lucian responded, lifting his chin high with a hint of arrogance. He claimed not to mind, yet he was still holding onto grievances. Jeremiah knew that Benjamin hadn't done those things, yet he was unfairly accused. "It's too much. First, I apologize to you, then I apologize to Benjamin. Give me some respect." Jeremiah knew his temper and didn't want to provoke him. If Lucian were displeased, he wouldn't let him off easily. With a grunt, Lucian still picked up his wine glass, raising it in a distant toast to Jeremiah before drinking it down. Jeremiah drained the wine from his cup with a slight curve of his lips. The housekeeper nearby quickly refilled their glasses. Jeremiah turned toward Benjamin, sincerely apologizing. There was a misunderstanding this time. I owe you an explanation. You all have suffered because of this, so I'll punish myself with a drink. Benjamin's gaze flickered. Chapter 1657. Jeremiah admitting his mistake and apologizing to him came as a bit of a surprise to Benjamin, but it was also somewhat expected. Perhaps Jeremiah had apologized, considering his other identity. Otherwise, there would be no reason to bring the two children here inexplicably. The purpose was clear to everyone. Jeremiah didn't care whether Benjamin knew or not. He raised his cup once more. This toast is for the two little ones. I shouldn't have brought them here, causing you all to worry. It's my fault. I apologize. Benjamin and Arissa exchanged glances. They hadn't expected Jeremiah to apologize to them in front of everyone. Commander Hoffman, don't you think you owe me an explanation for bringing them here? Benjamin directly asked Jeremiah. Jeremiah apologized, but whether he chose to forgive or not was his own affair. Everyone turned their attention to Jeremiah, all curious to know why. Only now did Kingsley and the others come to know that the two little ones had been brought here by Jeremiah, their faces filled with discontent. Seeing everyone's hostility toward Jeremiah, Justin felt indignant. He confronted Benjamin. What does my uncle need to explain? He has already apologized to you all. Justin, Jeremiah chided, not wanting to strain his relationship with Benjamin. Before he met Arissa, he was indifferent. However, after he saw Arissa's face, which bore a resemblance to someone from his past, a touch of softness emerged in Jeremiah's heart. He didn't want Arissa to hold a grudge against him. It was similar to how that woman held a grudge against him in the past. Uncle Jeremiah. Justin was utterly frustrated. He was being scolded even though he was just trying to help. Benjamin, if Justin has offended you in any way, I hope you can overlook it for my sake. He has been poorly disciplined since childhood, and his temperament is still that of a child. Jeremiah didn't want Benjamin to retaliate against Justin. Without his protection, Justin was no match for Benjamin. Benjamin snorted coldly. As long as he doesn't provoke me, I naturally won't have that much free time. When Justin heard Benjamin's scornful voice, his face darkened considerably, his eyes full of resentment. Jeremiah cast a glance over, and he quickly lowered his head. I secretly brought your two children here, mainly to understand the situation between you and Justin. Regardless of whether or not you were the one who bombed his house, I hope it ends here. It would be terrible if lives were lost. Jeremiah stared at Benjamin, his gaze exuding an oppressive intensity. Upon seeing that Benjamin showed no signs of abnormality, Jeremiah was taken aback in his heart. Could it be that he wasn't the one responsible? Upon hearing this, the two little ones averted their gaze, showing a hint of guilt. So, it was because of this that the big villain had brought us here. It seemed we weren't wronged after all. If I wanted to do something to him, it wouldn't be as simple as blowing up his house. Benjamin scoffed lightly, unafraid of them knowing his actions. But if you dare to harm my people again, I'm not someone with a good temper. I'm the kind of person who always seeks revenge for wrongs done to me. Benjamin's sharp eyes conveyed a warning. This time, it's my fault for causing you trouble. When I have the time, I will definitely come to apologize formally. To show his sincerity, Jeremiah drained another glass. There's no need to apologize formally, Benjamin refused, not wanting to get involved with Jeremiah in any way. I simply hope there won't be a next time. Sure, Jeremiah assured Benjamin, then added, so, is this matter considered settled? Benjamin averted his gaze, picking up his wine glass for a drink. Considering that the children and Arissa were unharmed, he decided not to hold it against them this time. Let's eat, Jeremiah announced with a relaxed expression, inviting everyone to start their meal. He even served the two little ones some dishes. Eat more, let me know what you'd like, and I'll serve it for you. Jeremiah loved watching the two little ones, treating them with such affection as if they were his own grandchildren. Everyone looked around, all somewhat surprised. Could it be that Jeremiah was feeling guilty? At this point, the two little ones actually felt awkward. Thank you, we'll help ourselves. Gavin and Zachary glanced at Jeremiah, and then, holding their plates, they began to pick out their favorite dishes. Jeremiah looked at them, Finding them so adorable, his eyes filled with laughter. Chapter 1658. The meal lasted for an hour, and everyone had their fill of food and drink. Jeremiah, Benjamin, and Lucian went to the study to discuss matters while their group waited outside, planning their return to Delmore. Mrs. Graham, your rooms have been prepared as per the master's instructions. If you are not in a hurry, you may stay here for the night and return to Delmore tomorrow morning. Gideon came over to speak with Orissa, expressing some reluctance at how quickly the two little ones were leaving. No, I can't. Have a few children at home, and I've already told them I'd be back tonight, Orissa gently declined. She didn't want to linger here for too long, as their relationship with Jeremiah wasn't that close yet. Once Benjamin and the others walked out, they were to set off for home. I see. I'll actually miss you all, said Gideon, showing a hint of regret. Mr. Hoffman is usually alone. Once you leave, it will be quiet here again. It was clear that Jeremiah really liked Orissa and the two little ones, wishing they could stay a bit longer. Kingsley, speechless, tugged at the corner of his mouth, unable to resist saying to Gideon, if you think Mr. Hoffman is lonely, you could suggest he get married and have children. That way, he wouldn't be lonely anymore. You can't just keep someone else's child here. Gideon pursed his lips. Mr. Hoffman truly likes them. Kingsley curled his lips, rarely arguing with him, and turned to speak to Orissa. I was puzzled, wondering how you ended up at Jeremiah's place. So, it turns out that Jeremiah brought you guys here. That's a bit underhanded. In the presence of Gideon, Kingsley didn't bother with formalities. Orissa glanced at him, asking, did you rush over here after hearing our news? Eyes not like that. Kingsley raised his eyebrows, visibly upset and still quite bothered. It was Jeremiah who captured us. We had just been released when Benjamin brought us here to meet you. Orissa was taken aback. She hadn't expected this. Why did he capture you? He thought we'd be charged with a crime, but he didn't expect Benjamin to have such skills. We're out again. Kingsley was incredibly pleased. With a smile, Jonathan shook his head. Who was the one who kept sighing and thought we'd be dead? Weren't you all over by the western desert? Could it be that they were unable to make contact because Benjamin had been arrested? They must have been locked up for several days now. Orissa had misunderstood. It wasn't until Kingsley's incessant chatter that she understood the reason. Originally, I was over there. Benjamin and the others went to find me and Jack, but unexpectedly, they fell into the trap as well. Someone was trying to frame us, setting us up, and leading us to that godforsaken place filled with contraband. We have no idea who was behind this. They must have been preparing this for a long time, only to pin the blame on us. Then, this morning, Jeremiah's men came over and arrested all of us. Poor Jonathan, he came to help but ended up getting caught as well. Kingsley glanced at Jonathan, thinking that if he had arrived a little later, he wouldn't have had to suffer along with them. Jonathan was at a loss whether to laugh or cry. I didn't realize it was Jeremiah's men. I thought you were locals in disguise who had taken control, which was why I intervened. Thankfully, they didn't dare to truly act. Otherwise, even 100 heads wouldn't be enough for you. Kingsley patted Jonathan's shoulder, shaking his head. Jonathan held an office position. It was a disadvantage to him since he wasn't familiar with situations as such. Had I not turned back, I would probably be in the same situation as you. Sean looked at them. Although he was also confined, he was well fed and well cared for, which was far better than their situation. All the hardship and exhaustion I endured today was because of Jeremiah. Kingsley grumbled, slapping his thigh in frustration. Despite his annoyance, there was nothing he could do to Jeremiah. It was Mr. Hoffman's fault. We apologize. Please have some more fruit. In order to salvage Jeremiah's image, all Gideon could do was to treat them well. Had it not been for your employer's meddling, we would have been comfortably enjoying our meals at home by now. Kingsley didn't hold back, continuing to eat while not forgetting to throw in a sarcastic remark. Orissa was so embarrassed she could hardly look. Even eating, you couldn't keep your mouth shut. Chapter 1659. Why haven't they come out yet? Kingsley looked toward the study, growing somewhat impatient as he waited. There must be something going on. Let's wait a bit longer. Orissa wasn't in a hurry. There were only 3 people inside. Benjamin was still with Lucian, so she didn't need to worry about Benjamin being taken advantage of or bullied. Sean and the others had consumed quite a bit of alcohol, all of them lounging on the couch to rest. The 2 little ones, however, were still quite energetic. If we don't go back soon, Tim and the others will surely be worried. Zachary said, furrowing her brows, eager to return. Orissa also wished for it, but since Benjamin hadn't come out yet, she could only wait. At that moment, within the study, the faces of the 3 individuals were taut with tension, creating an atmosphere that was anything but relaxed. Jeremiah, there's a traitor within your system. If you don't root them out completely this time, there will be trouble down the line. Lucian glared at Jeremiah, infuriated by his scheme involving Benjamin. What have you found out? Jeremiah was also bothered by this matter. The other party had overstepped their bounds. HMPH. I didn't find anything. I'm just warning you, especially about the people around you. You'd better be on guard. Lucian lifted his chin, acting quite haughty. Jeremiah glanced at him. I'm sure the other party is on guard if I investigate. How about you send someone to assist me this time? In the presence of the state, with the intervention of the Security Bureau, things would become much easier for him. Lucian frowned, not too pleased. It's fine if Benjamin helps me. Not many people know your identity, so it would be more convenient for you to investigate secretly. Jeremiah looked at Benjamin, intending to have him root out the mole. They have already tampered with the network system, and the information that has leaked out has damaged our interests. This also involves your department, doesn't it? Wouldn't it be great if we cooperated? Lucian glared at Jeremiah, remaining silent. Benjamin lowered his gaze, lost in thought. After a long while, he finally spoke in a cold voice. I don't really trust you. Startled, Jeremiah pondered for a moment, then understood why Benjamin would behave in such a way. He sighed. This time, it's my fault. I apologize to you. There's a traitor within the military system. This isn't a minor issue but a serious security breach. Don't you want to catch them? They've been scheming against you without knowing your identity. Don't you want to know who they are? Benjamin sneered coldly. Those who dared to scheme against him wouldn't be able to escape, not a single one. Currently, the enemy is in the dark while we are in the light. Everyone in the base under my jurisdiction is under suspicion. I've already detained the deputy officer of that sector, but I'm not clear who else is involved. If you investigate covertly, it will speed things up. Seeing that they still wouldn't budge, Jeremiah sighed. As long as you agree to help me this time, you can set the terms. Lucian's eyes lit up. Are you serious? He was waiting for Jeremiah to say this. Jeremiah knew what kind of temperament he had, and he was no longer angry. A hint of amusement flashed in Benjamin's eyes, yet his face remained impassive. Of course. Tell me, what do you want in return for your help? Jeremiah said generously, unafraid of him making outrageous demands. Well, this matter hasn't reached me yet. It's still considered an internal issue of yours. We're here this time to help you quell the internal strife. So, you see, I don't want you to feel indebted. Lucian made a gesture. The corner of Benjamin's mouth twitched. He felt embarrassed on his behalf. However, Lucian didn't feel awkward at all. How much? Jeremiah asked, his eyes not blinking. It would be more than perfect if money could bring Lucian on board. Not too much, not too little, just a small amount. Lucian looked up at the ceiling, not feeling it was too much at all. Deal. Jeremiah's face darkened slightly, but he accepted the price, nonetheless. Lucian glanced at him, feeling a twinge of regret for possibly being too lenient. Your terms. Jeremiah turned to Benjamin. Benjamin, on the other hand, was not short of money. He looked at Jeremiah. Let's put it on the tab for now. Jeremiah nodded in agreement. Let me know when you've thought of it. Chapter 1660. The 3 of them emerged from the study room, and over an hour had already passed. The previously energetic duo started to show signs of drowsiness. Benjamin is out. Kingsley was the first to leap up, instantly rousing everyone else from their slumber. "It's getting quite late," Jeremiah suggested. "Why don't you stay at my place for the night and head back in the morning?" He extended an invitation for them to spend the night. It was already past 10 o'clock, and if they rushed back to Delmore, it would be well into the second half of the night. Upon seeing that the children and Orissa were somewhat tired, Benjamin still declined, not wishing to prolong his stay at the Hoffman residence. "All right, we won't bother you here any longer." A hint of disappointment crossed Jeremiah's face, but he didn't insist on them staying. "I'll arrange a plane for you," he offered. "It'll be faster. Otherwise, if you drive back, it'll be past midnight. Our plane is also over here. There's no need to take yours." Sean hastily spoke out, reminding Benjamin. Orissa, with 2 children in tow, approached Benjamin and said, "Let's head back now. The other kids are waiting for us to return." "Right." Benjamin pulled her hand toward him. "Mr. Graham, our car is ready," Ethan reminded Benjamin. Benjamin bid farewell to Jeremiah. "We won't bother you any longer. Goodbye. I'll see you off." Jeremiah and Gideon escorted them out. In a low voice, Jeremiah instructed the butler, "Prepare some food for them to eat on the way. Hurry up." Once again, Jeremiah extended an invitation to Orissa. "Isa, about the matter I discussed with you, I hope you won't keep me waiting too long. I look forward to you joining us." Orissa responded with a smile, "I will consider it. Regardless of your decision, I hope you can give me an answer within 3 days, all right?" Jeremiah set a time frame, not to put Orissa in a difficult position, but simply because he wanted her to reach out to him again. Orissa glanced at him and gave a slight nod. Benjamin glanced back and forth at them, his eyes filled with profound implications. "Once you've arrived in Delmore, give me a call," Jeremiah directed at Benjamin. Benjamin gave a noncommittal response. At that moment, Gideon came over with a bag full of snacks, pastries, and fruits. Jeremiah handed them to her. "Take these to eat on the road." "No need, we just had a full meal." Orissa was somewhat taken aback. Jeremiah's attitude toward them was rather peculiar. "Here, take it. It's nothing valuable. Look at how frightened you are. You're pregnant, aren't you? You get hungry easily. Eat if you're hungry, or you can just throw it away when you get home." Jeremiah handed it over again. Orissa had no choice but to accept it. "Thank you, Commander Hoffman. Just call me Jeremiah from now on." As soon as Jeremiah spoke, everyone was stunned. One might think that maintaining a good relationship with Benjamin would be important, yet Jeremiah's attitude toward Benjamin was not as warm as it was toward Orissa. But what could Orissa possibly offer to Jeremiah that would make him treat her with such affection, even to the point of addressing her so warmly? "Commander Hoffman, don't entertain any ideas about my wife." Regardless of Jeremiah's intentions, Benjamin issued a warning. Jeremiah's attitude toward Orissa left him feeling inexplicably perplexed. Jeremiah glanced at him, aware that Benjamin had misunderstood, but still sent back a warning. "Benjamin, Isa is a good girl. She's so smitten with you that she believes everything you say. If you dare to mistreat her, I won't let you off the hook. I hope you treat her well." Orissa hadn't expected Jeremiah to say that. Feeling somewhat embarrassed, she hastily said, "He's been quite good to me, Commander Hoffman. We should get going now." She nudged Benjamin, signaling him to hurry into the car, as everyone else was already waiting for them inside. Benjamin gave Jeremiah a sidelong glance, his gaze tinged with a hint of annoyance. "My wife. I will take care of her myself. There's no need for you to worry." "That's good." Jeremiah nodded, his gaze shifting toward Orissa, filled with reluctance. Just as the car was about to drive off, Jeremiah couldn't help but ask a question. "Isa, what's your mother's name?"